Hey everybody, Coach Ed here. I'm over here in the shop at Bella Italia, Marble, Granite, and Quartz, picking up my order for a nice little bathroom I'm doing. I've been a contractor almost as long as I'm a hockey coach. So listen to me when I tell you, when you want the quality work and craftsmanship, come and see the boys over at Bella. They serve all 5 boroughs, Westchester, Long Island, all the way out to Montauk. Whether you're a Ranger fan, Islander fan, Devils fan, they're going to take care of you no matter what. Make sure you give them a call, 516-561-1018. Let's go, Rangers. All right, boys, bring it in.
That conference championship. That conference championship. Yeah, so my question, I guess we have to laugh first, right? Cousin Ed always laughs after the commercial. Right on cue, Mark. That was good.
Mark, what was your impression of the commercial when you first saw it?
Can I be completely honest with you guys?
I hope so.
I've only listened. I've never watched, like physically watched. This is the first time I really watched.
That's almost better.
And I actually got to watch the commercial for the first time and understand why you guys laugh.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
I mean, it's great, but now I understand.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So my question was, I guess, because your reaction to yes, being able to coach McDavid and Draisaitl is a huge treat, but obviously it brings some challenges. I mean, you and I, we coached Chaminade back in the day. Obviously, we had a team of some of the best kids from around Long Island playing it for Chaminade. So why don't you I just want you to kind of build off of that and what difficulties does coaching 2 really good players like that bring?
Well, for the most part, I remember, I always try to tell this story when you went to hockey camp, and who was the coach of the Thrashers, PJ? I always forget his name. He won the cup with Quebec with Patrick Roy.
Bob Hartley.
Bob Hartley. So I meet Bob Hartley because everybody in the camp got to take a picture with him and have a little 5-minute question. So I said, what was it like at the time coaching Danny Heatley and Kovalchuk? He goes, you don't even have to coach these guys. Their compete level and their skill is so high. It's a matter of, I always talk about, managing the bench. Like everybody says with the Yankees, I always think about this with Joe Torre. They're like, oh, anybody could have won World Series. No, you got to manage personalities. You got to manage Panarin. They want the puck all the time. They want to be on the ice all the time, those kind of guys. And you got to pick spots. You got to get the bench going. You got to get players in. You got to manage minutes. That's the hard part, Yes, it's easy because they have the skill, and on the power play, penalty kill, you could trust what they're going to do and in the right situations. But managing their personalities is the hardest part. That's the most difficult. The skill level is fine. You could say, just put McDavid out. They're going to make their own plays. You don't even have to run a power play. They're going to get open. They're going to set picks. They're going to make plays. They're going to talk to each other. Their mind is far ahead of a lot of people in the league. So that's the easy part. The hard part is getting them out at the right time, managing their ice time. Look at last year. McDavid was worn out in that playoffs last year and the year before. He was playing the last 5 minutes of the whole game. You can't keep up. You got to try to pace that and figure it out. That's the hard part at any level.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's also to tie it back in with the Rangers is an important thing with the Sullivan hire is he went through this with Malkin, Crosby, Letang, the list, Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, he's a different kind of personality, I think, but he's had all these superstars come in and out of Pittsburgh.
And then you got to manage.
Especially Malkin. I can't even imagine. Could you imagine trying to tell Malkin at all what to do or how to act?
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the story I was listening to a Penn's writer talk about Sullivan, and one of the first things Sullivan did is when he took over, because he took over early in the season. He was Wilkes-Barre's coach early that season before, I think it was Mike Johnson or whoever got fired, and there was a game and they were all complaining to the refs. I mean, that was classic Penguins back in the day, right? Like the entitled stars or 2 whiny stars, that what Torts used to say. And at one point, Gino Malkin was complaining to the ref, and Sullivan screamed at the top of his lungs, "Shut the F up," and got everyone's attention. He said, "We're not doing that anymore. It's enough." And that like was a turning point early on in his tenure, to really kind of get them in line and get the superstars behind him. And it kind of sounded like the big thing was he gets guys like the big guys, someone to really be the leader inside the room that's going to take his message and get the guys in line. Sounds like a perfect job for a Trocheck or a JT Miller in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if he could. His challenge, to me, his challenge is going to be to get Panarin to turn the corner, because that could be the difference maker in the whole team, in my opinion. If we get to the playoffs and in the playoffs, he's got to turn the corner with managing Panarin and getting him to play a better way, in my opinion. Because if he doesn't, Mika can turn around easily because he already kills penalties. He already back checks. He plays 200 feet. But to me, Panarin's got to manage the puck more and be more of a team player to make himself a more well-rounded hockey player. I'm not saying he's got to block shots and do what Tortorella wants, but he's got to make better decisions like we talked about for the last 2 years, in my opinion, to make the range.
Without a doubt.
How do you
Without a
break
doubt.
those habits? Because it seems like every coach has had an issue getting this core to play north-south. It just
he doesn't have to do it 100%, like I always talk about. But I'm only going on this low-level situation that I coach, but I'll take players. I'll be in practice, and you just got to pump them up, and you just got to talk to them on the side for 2-3 minutes. And then
Coach,
in a game when it happens, you got to see that's what we're talking about. That's it. You got to positive do it, and when it's not, you got to say, that wasn't right. He's going to have to talk to him. And I think Sullivan. I've seen him in games against the Rangers. Sullivan. I see him animated on the bench, not just yelling at refs. I'm talking about with his players, and you see that look in his face. So when you have that look and you have that that relationship with the player, I think look, I like all coaches. I like Quinn. I like Gallant. I liked all of them. But I think Sullivan is going to be able to manage it better than most that we've had. We'll see what happens.
Well, before we move on to the next question, Coach is very humble. I mean, you're a level 4, level 5 USA hockey coach.
Level 4.
So, I mean, you've been to seminars. You've listened to some very high-level people over the years. And like you just said, you don't dislike any coaches you can learn or you have learned. And I have learned things from everyone. I mean, no coach is perfect, but every coach has something, especially the Rangers over the years. Every coach has had something that has worked, whether it's whatever, face-offs, this, whatever, power play, that. So very cool, like I said, and I hope none of our players are listening because they're not low level. I mean, yeah, it's club college.
I don't mean low level. I mean, I'm at a club hockey level. I'm not near NHL status.
Of course.
But Coach, I was curious. For the listeners, I sent Coach an article. Like there was an article, like a leadership article that Sullivan must have talked to some coaching symposium or something. And that, man, I was curious what you thought of like his methods.
I mean, I already copied and pasted in my notes to go over some stuff this year. It looks like it's almost like a corporate mentality also, because everything he talked about it related to running a corporation, which like we always say, sports relates to real life in a lot of ways, as far as mentally, motivation, getting people to work as a team. So managing a hockey team directly correlates with managing a corporation or a workforce. So it's very interesting, and I'm going to try to use some of those points if I can relate it to our team and stuff. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, that was just for reference. It was from trainingindustry.com. There was an article called Building a Winning Learning Culture, Lessons from Mike Sullivan. So this is back a couple years ago when he coached Pittsburgh, but it was interesting the way he handles the players and what his thoughts are with like video, not throwing somebody under the bus and like doing more one-on-one stuff. So this way.
Yeah, I gotta learn from that.
yeah, maybe jot that one down with a Sharpie.
No, it's interesting because I think they said.
I mean,
go
ahead.
No, I was just saying his thought was that when they do like a group session, on a video and a guy knows he can see the play that it was him that made the mistake, he's like hiding, but when he does it one-on-one with a guy, he can, really open up and kind of meet the player halfway to see what he was trying to do. And so
Well, in all fairness, I'm not afforded that kind of time.
that's fair. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But I also, I used to be a big fan of Vince Lombardi back in the, when NFL Films was popular. That's where I really started coaching. I like a lot of his methods. And he used to just call out every player in a group meeting and grade them in front of everybody. So I'm more of that old style culture where I'm not worried about feelings as much when you get to a certain level. Yes, not as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, but when you're in midgets, say 16, 17, 18, and it's getting more competitive, you got to have a little bit more thick skin, in my opinion. But I guess that's why I'm phasing out. We'll see what happens.
I didn't have much to contribute here, guys. Sorry, but Coach, the way you dress, I think that's half the battle. I think you look great behind the bench. So,
thanks, Mark.
The hat, the jacket, the tie, I think it's great.
The players rally around you for
set
sure.
The tone. Set the tone.
Well, our player of the game, our player of the game hat's also a cowboy hat, so the players have definitely embraced it.
I love
red leather cowboy hat.
Yeah,
but like we talked about with Quinn, obviously when he's an assistant with the Rangers, he went to Wilkes-Barre, like PJ said. He's got to learn along the way too. He probably learned from his coach when he was assistant on the Rangers bench, and then he went to these corporate symposiums, and you learn and you try to push it into a system. And he was at the right place at the right time, and the team bought in, and he won a couple of cups. I mean, it does help having Fleury as goaltender. It does help having Crosby and Malkin with their work ethic, especially Crosby, and as a leader. And he ran with it, and it worked. So let's see what happens.
One thing Sully does have now is goaltending. I think he's going to really love Igor, and I think that's going to be huge. To be completely honest.
Yep.
Oh, he has a huge backstop now.
And I got to say, I mean, I know Cousin Ed questioned. We had some discussions, but even their defensive core, you got Vakanainen, you got Borgen, you got Fox, you got a solid group of good defensemen. They're not superstars. You can't have all superstars, but I think that's going to be a good core to work with. If Keandre can come around, I don't know what's going to happen with him. We'll talk about that. But who's the other kid? The kid Robertson I liked in the end of the season personally. That's a low salary guy that could come in and really push the defense in the right way. Big kid, strong kid, who knows? I mean, I think they have a good group of players. I've been saying it for years. I don't think defensemen is their problem. I think it's the whole team system.
I think that'll be definitely the big difference between Sully and Lavi, though. I think you talk about a guy like Robertson. I think he's going to get, if he deserves his time, he's going to get his time. I think unfortunately, to his demise, he's stuck with those guys. You take a look at the power play. He never changed it, but he put one other person, he would change it. You take a look at the decor. He only changed things when, it was getting really bad. So I think, I do think that that you're going to get a guy like Robertson. If he's playing well, he's going to play.
Yeah, I like the way he played, and I thought he played good with Fox. I think they locked Borgen and Vakanainen in for a reason. Otherwise, I don't think they would have signed him that early. I think
a really good contract. It was only 2 years for like $1 or $2 million,
right? I think they locked him in. I think they're heads-up players.
And they're solid defensive players. If they have to contribute offensively, hopefully they'll be able to. But PJ, you got anything else for Coach from that article? I mean, is there any other points that we can build on, or should we just get into the?
No, those are the main ones. I was just curious what he thought. Kind of wanted to throw it out there. I thought it was kind of a cool, not just a typical systems thing. It was more so of a mindset of a coach, I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I think it's huge, like we keep saying, and Coach Ed kind of touched on it just now. Also, I mean, obviously, Panarin and Zibanejad, all of our superstars and Rangers superstars aren't on the level of McDavid and Draisaitl, but like half of it is like go out there and play, and most of it is setting that culture, keep making sure the players are on the right path, stay on the course, and all that stuff. So It's a full-time job and then some, without a doubt. It's not just on the ice or behind the bench.
Yeah, a lot of
I
different
mean, everybody
personalities.
makes fun. I don't know if you guys were all young. I don't know how, I forget how old you are, PJ, but there's an interesting stories in the book with about Mike Keenan in 93, 94. He called them all in, and I could see Sullivan doing this and having, like you hear about Paul Maurice when he got the job in Florida, calling every guy and talking to them one-on-one. I could see Sullivan doing that and expecting what he wants and what we need you to do, and just pumping him up and talking. But Keenan used to bring him in and ask him these stupid questions, and they walk out of the office like, what the hell is he talking about? That was the whole thing in the book. Like half of them would be like, what's wrong with this guy? But he would like play mind games with him. And again, it works to a degree. He wasn't, he didn't win 10 Stanley Cups, but for that particular group, it worked, But it'll be interesting to see that Sullivan looks like from that article you sent me, Sullivan looks like he's looking to not control their mindset, but set a standard, as a corporation, as a group. And that's important. So that's a good sign to me. Let's see, again, time will tell and how successful it goes.
Yeah, as I say, good leadership and kind of. I think it seems like he does a lot more one-on-one with players than I've seen. Like from what reading, it just sounds like a different culture that he sets, and they need it. So
yeah, to me, it seems like a lot too. You hear like again because Florida's been so good. You hear Maurice talk a lot. Like he talks about them practicing before the season starts. I mean, I know we go over it with Zibanejad. He's in Sweden, DJing this, pro football teams, the same thing. It's when the skill guys get together prior to training camp and work together to get little timing things going. And that's important stuff. And to me, that's the successful teams have more of that than not. So maybe he can get them in a little earlier. Some guys, not the whole team, but, groups, defensemen maybe, and talking and working together, playing team bonding games and stuff. So we'll see what happens. It seems like he's, like I said, he's got the right mindset so far.
Well, I
We
think
can
that's
only
another.
hope.
Go ahead, Mark. What?
I just said we could only hope.
Yeah. I mean, it can't be much worse than last year. So
no.
Hopefully
There's
JT
one-
or Troach are gonna take the bull by the horns, and and you have that coach and captain relationship too. So
yeah,
we'll get that done.
Yeah, for sure.
well, at least they have a long off season for all these nagging injuries we've been hearing about. Trocheck, Kreider, Fox.
No,
Yeah,
Miko
he
looked good
lost you.
international. I tell you that. So
I'm sure coaching is going to keep coming up throughout the episode. But to transition it back to players, there's one BU connection we did not mention of a very special unrestricted free agent next summer, Jack Eichel.